You have tried the strategies. You have bought the courses. You have hired the coaches. You have built the funnels. You have rewritten the offers. You have done the morning routines. And yet something keeps stopping you. Something invisible. Something that no strategy has ever been able to touch. Today I am going to show you exactly what that something is. But first I need to say something directly to you. I know what you're thinking right now. You are thinking this is another manifestation video. You are thinking this is going to be vague and spiritual and completely useless for your actual bank account. You are thinking Jung is some old dead guy who has nothing to do with your business. I hear you, and I need you to stay with me, because everything you just thought is exactly what I am going to destroy in this video. This is not a mindset video. This is not law of attraction. This is not positive thinking with a fancy academic name. This is a map, a real map, a map of the exact part of your brain that is making your financial decisions right now without your permission. Carl Jung drew that map over 100 years ago, and nobody in the business world has had the courage to point it directly at your revenue until today. I also want to say something important before we begin. Nothing in this video is a verdict on who you are. Every pattern we are going to talk about today was created by a smart and very brave part of you. It was created to protect you. It made complete sense at the time it was built. We are not here to shame it. We are here to finally see it, because you cannot change what you refuse to look at. By the end of this video, you are not just going to understand why you are stuck. You are going to feel something shift, something real, something that no course or coach has ever reached before. So take a breath, and let us begin. Before we get to the 5 archetypes, I need to build a bridge for you, because right now your brain is probably asking a very fair question. What does a Swiss psychiatrist from the 1900s have to do with my Stripe account in 2025? That is a great question. And the answer is everything. Jung spent his whole life studying one idea. He believed that the most powerful forces shaping your life are not the ones you are aware of. They live underneath the surface, in what he called the shadow. Now that word sounds dark and scary, but it is actually very simple. Your shadow is just a collection of every belief you formed about money before you were old enough to question whether it was true. Think about that for a second. When you were a child, you were watching. You were watching how the adults around you talked about money. You were watching whether money caused fights or brought peace. You were watching whether success was celebrated or resented. You were watching whether people who had money were good or greedy. And your little brain took all of that in and built a story. A very detailed story. A story about what money means. About what you have to do to get it. About whether someone like you is even allowed to have it. That story did not stay in your childhood. It grew up with you. It put on a suit. It opened a business account. And right now, today, it is sitting in your CEO chair making decisions. It is writing your prices. It is avoiding your sales calls. It is rewriting your offer for the 11th time. It is posting and then going quiet for 3 weeks. It is smiling at your declining numbers because the truth feels too uncomfortable to face. This is why strategies fail. Not because the strategy was wrong, but because an unconscious pattern was running the person executing it. The strategy was fine. The operator was compromised. And until you see which pattern is running you, you'll keep buying new strategies and wondering why nothing sticks. Jung called these patterns archetypes, deep unconscious characters that live inside us and shape how we see the world. I have identified 5 of them that show up specifically around money and business. I call them the 5 Goblets. One of them is going to feel very personal when I describe it. That feeling of recognition is not an accident. That feeling is exactly the data we need. The first goblet is beautiful. It is delicate. It is refined. And it cracks under pressure. I call this one the Porcelain Goblet. And if this is your goblet, you probably already know it. Here is what your Monday morning looks like. You open your laptop with the best intentions. You're going to finish the offer today. You are going to send the email today. You are going to post the content today. But then you read the first line of what you wrote and something tightens in your chest. It is not quite right. The wording is slightly off. The font does not feel aligned with the brand. The structure could be cleaner. And 4 hours later you are still on the same page. Still refining. Still not done. Still not published. This is not a discipline problem. This is not a focus problem. This is a safety problem. At some point in your life, being imperfect felt genuinely dangerous. Maybe you were criticized when you made mistakes. Maybe approval was conditional on performance. Maybe getting something wrong meant losing love or belonging. Your little brain made a very smart decision. It decided that if everything you put out is perfect, then nobody can hurt you. Excellence became your armor, and that armor worked for a while. But now that armor is costing you. Every day you spend refining instead of releasing is a day your audience cannot find you. Every week you spend tweaking instead of launching is revenue that expired in your drafts folder. The market does not reward perfection. The market rewards presence. And right now your presence is being held hostage by a standard that was never really about quality. It was always about fear. Here's the shift you need. Done and learning will always beat perfect and waiting. Always. The action this week is simple. Launch one thing at 80% ready. Just one thing. Then watch what actually happens versus what you were afraid would happen. You will discover that the catastrophe you were protecting yourself from was mostly a story. And if you want somatic support for this work, try wintergreen and cypress. Wintergreen helps your nervous system release the grip of control. Cypress invites a more flexible and trusting flow into your decisions. The second goblet is heavy. It is cold, it is solid, and it is absolutely exhausting to carry. I call this one the Iron Goblet. And if this is yours, you are probably tired right now, even as you watch this. You hustle harder than anyone you know. You are the first one up and the last one to stop. You wear your busyness like a badge. When someone asks how you are doing, you say busy like it is an achievement. You cannot enjoy your wins because the next battle is already calling. Rest feels irresponsible. Ease feels suspicious. And somewhere deep down you believe that if success comes too easily, it does not really count. This is not ambition. This is survival. At some point in your life, you learned that stillness was dangerous. Maybe money was always scarce and stressful in your home. Maybe love was only given to those who worked hard enough for it. Maybe you watched the people around you struggle, and your brain decided that struggle is just what life costs. So your nervous system built a permanent emergency mode, and it has been running ever since. The problem is a body in permanent emergency mode cannot think expansively. It can only survive. It cannot see big opportunities. It cannot make creative decisions. It cannot build sustainable systems. It is too busy fighting fires that are not even real anymore. And eventually that body will break. Not as a possibility, as a certainty. The burnout is not coming. It is already scheduled. Your biology will force the stop that you refuse to choose. Here is the shift. Sustainability is not the reward for success. It is a strategy for success. A business built on adrenaline will collapse the moment the adrenaline does. This week, find one thing you are doing through force and ask yourself how it could be done through structure instead. And for nervous system support, try Copaiba and Wild Orange. Copaiba deeply calms an overworked and exhausted nervous system. Wild Orange breaks the scarcity pattern and begins to open the door to ease and natural abundance. The third goblet is fascinating. It is complex and layered and filled with light. I call this one the Crystal Goblet. And if this is yours, your bookshelf is probably full, and your client roster is probably not. You have more certifications than most people in your industry. You have taken a master class. You have done the course. You have read the books. You are genuinely brilliant, but you are also genuinely invisible because you keep telling yourself that you need just one more piece of knowledge before you are truly ready to lead. One more qualification, one more framework, one more level of understanding, and then you will finally step forward, except then never comes. This is not about education. This is about exposure. At some point, being visible felt unsafe. Maybe you were ridiculed when you spoke up. Maybe your confidence was knocked down early. Maybe someone important to you told you that you were not as smart or as capable as you thought. And so your brain found a brilliant solution. It found a way to feel productive while staying completely protected. Learning looks like progress. Collecting credentials looks like preparation. But underneath it is hiding. And the mountain of books and badges is the hiding place. The cost of this is real. While you are studying, your competitors are selling. While you are preparing, your market is moving. While you are adding credentials, your self-trust is slowly eroding because deep down you know that more information is not the real issue, and that knowing without acting creates a very specific kind of shame that gets harder to face the longer it goes on. Here is a shift. You do not need more information. You need more reps. Real expertise is not built in a library. It is built in the field, in the messy, imperfect, real world of doing the thing. This week, identify the one course or certification you are currently using as a reason to delay. Give yourself a visibility deadline, a real one with a date. And for support, try Lemon and Patchouli. Lemon sharpens your focus on what actually matters. Patchouli pulls your energy out of your head and brings it all the way down into your body and into real action. The fourth goblet is mysterious and elegant. It is wrapped in shadow and starlight. I call this one the Stellar Goblet. And if this is yours, you are probably the most talented person in your space that nobody has ever heard of. You are an incredible observer. You watch everyone else in your industry closely. You know what is working for them. You have opinions that are sharper and deeper than most of the loud voices in your field. But when it comes to sharing those opinions yourself, something stops you. You post inconsistently. You go quiet for weeks and then feel guilty and then go quiet again. You are more comfortable helping someone else build their platform than standing on your own. And you have probably told yourself this is just because you are not a show-off. But that is not what is happening here. Your nervous system has decided that being truly seen is a threat. At some point, visibility came at a cost. Maybe you were judged harshly when you stood out. Maybe being noticed brought unwanted attention. Maybe you watched someone get torn apart publicly, and your brain filed that away as evidence that hiding is the safer choice. And so it built you a perfect solution. Stay brilliant. Stay strategic. Just stay hidden. But here's what hiding is actually costing you. People cannot buy from someone they cannot find. Your brand cannot grow beyond the borders of your shadow. Every week you stay invisible is a week the people who need you most are finding someone else instead. Someone who is not as good as you, but someone who showed up. Here is a shift. Hiding does not protect you. It just guarantees that your gifts never reach the people they were meant for. This week, create one piece of visible content, not educational content, not tips and tricks, something personal, something that shows your actual perspective, your actual voice. And for support, try cedarwood and tea tree. Cedarwood gives your nervous system the deep feeling of safety and belonging it needs to stand in the light. Tea tree reinforces the energetic boundaries you need to speak your truth without collapsing under the fear judgment. The fifth goblet glows warm and golden. It radiates light and comfort and reassurance. I call this one the Solar Goblet. And if this is yours, you are probably the most encouraging person in every room you walk into, including the room where your business is quietly struggling. Your content is always positive. Your captions are full of gratitude and abundance language. You talk about seasons and growth and trusting the process. And all of that is genuinely beautiful, except that sometimes you're talking about trusting the process while actively avoiding looking at the numbers. Sometimes the affirmations are running louder than the analytics. Sometimes a positive reframe is not a mindset tool. It is a blindfold. This pattern was built with love. At some point, your environment was painful or unpredictable, and optimism was the one thing you could control. When everything outside was chaotic, your inner sunshine was your anchor. That was genuinely wise. That kept you going. But now that same sunshine is shining so brightly that it is making it hard to see clearly. And a business that cannot see clearly cannot make good decisions. The cost of this is specific. Financial red flags that get reframed instead of resolved compound over time. Problems that are spiritually bypassed do not disappear. They grow quietly in the background. And the gap between your public brand of abundance and your private financial reality creates an exhaustion that is very hard to admit but very real to carry. Here is a shift. Real optimism is not the absence of hard truths. Real optimism is the deep confidence that you can handle whatever the truth actually is. This week, open your actual numbers. Just look at them. Sit with what they are telling you without immediately reaching for a reframe. Let the information land. And for support, try frankincense and geranium. Frankincense brings a grounded wisdom and clarity you need to face reality with strength. Geranium restores the deep trust in yourself that makes looking at hard truths feel safe instead of threatening. Now I need to pause here, because I know what a lot of you are feeling right now. You are feeling like you just recognize yourself in 2 of those goblets. Maybe 3. Maybe you felt a little ping of recognition in all 5. And you are wondering if that means something is really wrong with you. It does not. It means you were paying very close attention. Here's the truth. Most people carry a primary archetype and 1 or 2 secondary patterns. The primary is the one that shows up first when money gets stressful. It is your default wound. The secondary patterns are the escape routes your primary uses when it gets challenged. For example, perfectionists will often slip into the invisible one when the pressure to launch becomes too real. Instead of publishing imperfectly, they just disappear completely. The warrior will often slide into the endless student when the body finally refuses to keep fighting. Instead of resting, they start researching, because at least researching feels productive. The patterns talk to each other. They cover for each other. They are a system. So here's a simple question to find your primary. Think about the last time your revenue dropped or your business felt really stuck. What did you do first? Did you go back and fix and refine something? That is the perfectionist. Did you immediately work harder and longer? That is the warrior. Did you sign up for another course or consume more content? That is the endless student. Did you get quiet and pull back from visibility? That is the invisible one. Did you focus on gratitude and affirmations instead of the data? That is the optimist. The pattern you return to under pressure is your primary wound. That is the one to start with. Now I need to answer the most important practical question this whole video has been building toward. What do you actually do with all of this? Because awareness without action is just very sophisticated procrastination. There are 3 levels to integrating what you just learned, and I won't walk you through each one simply and clearly so you leave this video with a real next step and not just a beautiful idea. The first level is witnessing. This is what today gave you. You saw the pattern. You named it. You understood where it came from. And that alone is more powerful than it sounds. Jung believed that the moment you bring something from the unconscious into the conscious mind, it begins to lose its automatic power over you. You cannot change what you cannot see. Now you can see it. That is a real and meaningful shift, even if it does not feel dramatic right now. The second level is interrupting. This is what you do this week. You do not need to eliminate the pattern. You just need to catch it in real time and insert 1 moment of choice. When the perfectionist reaches for the edit button for the 7th time, you name it out loud. There you are, and then you publish anyway. When the warrior starts a new project at 11, at night you name it out loud. There you are, and then you close the laptop. The naming itself is the intervention. It creates a tiny gap between the trigger and the automatic behavior. And that gap is where your freedom lives. The third level is rewiring. This is the ongoing practice. This is what happens when you consistently choose the integrated behavior over time until your nervous system builds a new default. New evidence is the only thing that actually rewires an old belief. Every time you publish imperfectly and the world does not end, you give your nervous system new evidence. Every time you rest and your business does not collapse, you give your nervous system new evidence. Every time you show up visibly and feel the safety on the other side, you give your nervous system new evidence. This is how the pattern changes, not through willpower, through accumulated experience. And here's the most important thing I want you to hear. You do not need years of therapy before your revenue can move. You do not need to be fully healed before you are allowed to grow. You need 1 moment of real recognition, followed by 1 different choice, then another, then another. That is how the unconscious becomes conscious. That is how fate becomes a decision. I want to close with something that I think is really important, something that most people in this space never say. It took courage to watch this video. Real courage. Most people would rather keep buying strategies than look at the wound underneath them. Most people would rather blame the algorithm or the economy or the timing than turn the lens inward. You stayed. You looked. That matters more than you probably realize right now. And I want you to see something before you go. Every single archetype we talked about today contains its own medicine. The perfectionist's eye for excellence, when it is integrated, does not disappear. It becomes the ability to create genuinely world-class work without the paralysis. The warrior's resilience, when it is integrated, does not disappear. It becomes the most disciplined and unshakable strategic structure you have ever built. The endless student's depth of knowledge, when it is integrated, does not disappear. It becomes real thought leadership that nobody can replicate. The invisible one's powers of observation, when it is integrated, do not disappear. They become the most authentic and compelling voice in the entire industry. The optimist's capacity for vision, when it is integrated, does not disappear. It becomes a kind of unshakable faith that can look at hard numbers and still genuinely believe in what is being built. The wound was never the problem. The unconscious wound was the problem. Jung had a name for this process of turning your wounds into your greatest strengths. He called it individuation, becoming fully and completely yourself. And I believe that individuation and financial freedom are the exact same journey, just described by different languages. Jung once said that the most terrifying thing is to accept yourself completely. I would add one thing to that. The most financially liberating thing is exactly the same. So here's what I want you to do right now. In the comments below, tell me which goblet is yours. Just name it. The porcelain, the iron, the crystal, the stellar, the solar. Just write the name. That simple act of naming it publicly is your first real act of integration. It is the moment the shadow steps into the light. And it is the moment everything begins to shift. If you want to go deeper with this work, I have left the next step in the description below. It will take you further into exactly this process in a more personal and supported way. But even if you never click that link, I want you to know something. The fact that you watched this video to the end means something true and important about you. It means the part of you that is ready to grow is bigger than the part of you that is afraid to look. And that is all you have ever needed. That has always been enough. Now, go name your goblet.